I'll go ahead and call the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority October 6th trust meeting to order. There are no items from the chairman today. Are there any residents to be heard? I don't believe there are. So we'll move to item 4, which is approval of the minutes of the September 1st COPTA board meeting. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Moving on to item 5, which is the consent docket. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items on the consent docket. Are there any items that any of the trustees would like to pull and consider individually? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent docket? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. We're chugging right along here, aren't we? This is good. Item 6 is items for individual consideration. The first item is the renewal number 1 of the professional services agreement with Koch Communications for marketing and public relations services, estimated at an annual cost of $200,000 from November 2nd, 2023 to November 1st, 2024. Suzanne?
Yes, I can speak on this item. We actually have someone from Koch Communications present. I'd like to thank Chandra for being here. So we've worked with Koch for 3 years now, and this agreement takes us into our 4th year with them. And primarily, they assist us with things like media relations and internal and public communications that are important pieces for us. And so going into this 4th year, they're partnering with us to help us with the marketing plans for OKC Moves and BRT launch. So as you can imagine, when you're launching a new service, it's all hands on deck when coming up with these plans and making sure they're very thorough and that they have a good market reach. So they're helping us strategize on those plans. Also planning for the ribbon cutting event when we launch service December 3rd, and the ribbon cutting is on December 4th, but they'll be helping us, or they are helping us with those event plans. So we're very grateful for their partnership, and we'll have a marketing committee meeting later this morning, so you'll get to hear more about those plans this morning.
Thank you. That's good. Are there any questions or comments? We're excited that Koch is part of our team, especially with the help of the launch of the BRT. So is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion is approved. Item B is a resolution authorizing the administrator to apply for the Surface Transportation Block Grant Urbanized Area Funds for Embark fiscal year 26 CNG buses and fiscal year 27 CNG bus projects, and approve the local match funding estimated at $828,000. Suzanne?
All right, so this item, it's a very long grant title, the Surface Transportation Block Grant, but we like to call it the STBG for short. And these are Federal Highway Administration dollars that pass through ODOT and then pass through to ACOG for managing. And so there's a process where they call for projects and they score those projects. And in recent years, they've adjusted their scoring criteria to allow for, which allows our buses to be a really good eligible project for receiving the grant. And so with this item, we are asking for the trustees to approve, authorize us to apply for the grant. So it's a total 4.1 million grant, but 3.3 of those are the federal dollars. We're also asking for approval for the local match of that 4.1, which is $828,000. That's the standard 20% local match. And so the way this is structured, they've changed recently where they do a call for projects for 2 federal fiscal years in a row. So now they do these call for projects every other year. And so this is for federal fiscal year 26 and 27. And so our application is going to be for 3 CNG buses for each of those years, so 6 total CNG buses. And so we are grateful for the opportunity to be able to apply for grants for those buses because it does help us with funding our fleet replacement plans, and also as we need to expand our bus fleet, it's a great resource for us to be able to do that. We expect to know early calendar year 2024 whether or not we were awarded the grant, and then if we were awarded the funds, we'd be bringing an item to the board to receive that award.
And if we get these funds, we'll only have one bus left to take care of in our 5-year plan, is that?
So
it's
yes,
unfunded at this point?
Well, in our capital improvement plan, our 5-year plan, we currently have one CNG bus not funded, and that's in fiscal year 28. So it's at the very end of that 5 years. So this actually would help position us to either utilize some of the funding that we have allocated for the buses for maybe our vans, or it can also help us if we need to, at that time, purchase additional buses for our fleet, so expanding it, which is part of our OKC Moves plan. So we're sitting pretty good there.
That's great. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Okay. Well, is there a motion to adopt? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 7 is ratification of claims and payroll for the period of September 6th through September 26th, 2023. Is there a motion to ratify? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye, or vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 8 is to receive our financial reports for the revenue and expenditures budget to actual for the month ending August 31st.
Okay, so we're 2 months into the fiscal year, and we'll start on page 2, which is our transportation operations report. So this takes us through August 31st. And under the revenue section, you'll see that in bold, total revenues for actual year to date are $6.3 million. And that's about $37,000 below budget, which is about 0.5%, so pretty on level with where we thought we'd be this time of year. I do want to point out that if you look over at prior year, kind of following that bold line there, you'll see that we are about $730,000 below where we were this time last year. And I thought I might explain that. And so over in the change column, which is the far right column, you'll see that there's a couple of high negative variances there. We've got the FTA CARES reimbursement at negative $939 from prior year, and then American Rescue Plan, $1.1 million. So of course, as we've mentioned before, those 2 grants we have now expended on, so we won't have any more revenues in those lines, but they do stay on the report since we had revenue from those sources last year. And just another reminder what we had to do with guidance from the FTA. They were really encouraging us to expend those dollars as quickly as possible. So we did expend them at the very beginning of the fiscal year, which is why here in August you're seeing such a high negative variance where we were at last year with those grants. And so we expended those grants, and now we're back on pace with our federal grant dollars that we use for reimbursement of things like preventative maintenance and some of the staffing time. So now we're kind of leveled back up to our pace, and so that's why that's part of why we have that variance. And just of course, as a reminder, our FTA CARES money, we did supplement with our city subsidy. So you'll see the general fund city subsidy is up $1.1 million from last year. So that was that replacement of, we're down $1 million on FTA CARES, but we're up on our subsidy as we had that 3-year plan to replace the subsidy that had been used by CARES. So, so that I just wanted to explain why we are looking like we're lower than last year. And we will catch up. We anticipate catching up. Of course, our budget to date on the expenditures is another thing I wanted to point out to you. We have $6.5 million in expenditures, so it's about $175,000 over budget, about 3%. And under personal services, you'll see that's really where our big variance is, negative $446,000. And this time of year, again, we're really early into the year, so lots of things can change over the year. But what's causing this negative variance is at this time, and in July and August, we were fully staffed on our operators, which is an incredible accomplishment of our our recruitment team and of our operations team doing all those interviews. So it did kind of put our budget a little bit over, our expenses a little bit over on our budget. We have typically vacancies that help kind of that create the negative variance there is because we don't have those vacancies, is what I'm trying to say, excuse me. We do have budget for all those positions. It's just that on the column of original budget year to date, we anticipate we'll have those vacancies. That's just a forecast, which we didn't have the vacancies. We had all the positions filled, which is a great thing. So we're going to continue monitoring that, but at this time we don't anticipate any concerns with our personal services throughout the year. And then if we turn over to the parking operations, which is page 4. So our total revenues are $953,000, which is about 3% above budget overall. And our expenditures going down the line there are about $500,000. So we are actually under budget by $109,000, a total operating income of $456,000. One thing I'd point out is under events and transient parking under revenues. So you'll see there's a negative variance of $50,000. But if we do look over to prior year, we are level with where we were at last year with our revenues. We really anticipated our events to continue to grow and the attendees of those events. And so the reason we have that negative variance is because based on our forecast, those events weren't as attended as we anticipated. But it doesn't mean that, throughout the year we won't recognize the revenue that we had budgeted there. It's just a timing issue. And then finally, if we will move over to streetcar, which is page 7. So the total revenues for streetcar are $1.175 million, just a little less than 1% under budget. And our total expenditures are $825,000, about $80,000 under budget. And our total operating income was $350,000. And so a couple of things to point out on this. Our streetcar fares, you'll notice that those are down $8,000. When looking at prior year, it's also down. And so in looking into that, primarily the reason is we have a contract with a visitor bureau to help us with getting passes sold to our visitors that attend conferences at the City Convention Center. And so we do get billing on the revenues on a quarterly basis. So this does not reflect some of those events that we've had. So it's kind of just a timing issue of recording that revenue. But we anticipate that will bump back up once we get that quarterly payment. We've had a few events these past 2 months that were in July and August here. And then on the supplies, that's also, you're seeing it's only 36% of what we had budgeted. So the reason there is we're waiting on a few invoices that are going to come in. We have quite a few delays when it comes to ordering parts, and then when we receive them, and that's when the expenditure is incurred. And so we do expect that as those invoices come through and as the parts come in, that will level out on our supplies. So we are still okay on our budget there, but I just wanted to point out, I didn't want to give a false sense that our supplies are really low, because our streetcars do require the repairs, the parts for the repairs and maintenance still, so that's still going on. So those are my comments on the financials, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Are there any comments or questions? I'll throw one out here. The bike share revenue seems to be really high.
I can speak to that for
Okay.
sure. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I can explain. So in the past, I've talked with you all about how we have this agreement with Drop, and they take some different cuts of the revenues, and then we get a net revenue from them. And we've recorded in the past the net revenue, which makes it look like, wow, like we're up on our ridership, but our revenues are not up. Well, we've had, working with our accounting division, we've actually adjusted how we record those revenues. And so now we're recording gross revenues to more accurately reflect the ridership. And then we're taking all those expenditures that previously were taken out of the revenues, we're putting them down under the expenditure section of the report. So it's more accurate reflection of our revenue and our expenses. So it's basically just some accounting changes. It doesn't affect the operating income. It's, at the end of the day, that's going to reflect the same way we did in the past. It's just the revenues and expenditures are more accurately characterized.
I wasn't sure whether that was additional ridership or not.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very good question, especially looking at prior year. It's quite a jump.
So, okay. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to receive our financial reports? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Moving into item 9, which is our program reports. We'll start out with the Bus Rapid Transit update. Jesse, good morning.
Morning. How's everyone doing this almost beautiful fall morning? It's pretty perfect, right? So speaking of fall, my son is 11 years old and we play baseball. We're quickly going into the fall baseball season. And a few weeks ago, we were playing in Midwest City, and we were in between games. We were walking around and stuff, and overheard these two men sitting there, and they were talking about this. One man was talking about his mother was riding a bus, and was talking about how it's cool, this new wheelchair device they got. She doesn't really have to do anything; it just squeezes her wheelchair and stuff. It's just kind of cool to, not probe to hear that information, but just kind of hear it out in the wild. And I truly think that as we start to bring this rapid system online, I think we'll start to hear more stories like that, and hope to be able to share those stories with you guys. And looking forward to that. Looking forward to the presentation. So. I can wing it. There we go. All right, perfect.
Now we have pictures.
All right, so happy October 6th. Let's talk about Rapid. So the first thing we're going to talk about is our bus construction, our bus delivery. I'm happy to report that our 9th bus has arrived, has been tested, and is ready to go. We have received that bus on September 18th, and part of receiving that bus and working with Cook and Chandra, we reached out to a lot of media agencies, and we had several interviews to kind of talk about that new bus and talk about Rapid Northwest coming online. And we were able to get several social media posts out there. Really just wanted to, shout out to Michael and his team and the Cook team to bring recognition to that final bus showing up in Oklahoma City. This is a photo of some dude out on the grid there at Embark doing a media interview. But really, really appreciate everybody putting that together. So let's talk a little bit more about the construction. So there's a little bit more construction to wrap up there at Northwest 23rd and Classen. You would have noticed that there's some road work that just wrapped up. So what's next? Next comes the striping, right? So we've put in brand new ADA ramps, put in brand new pedestrian push buttons, and now the crosswalk striping goes in. A little bit of cleanup at the platforms, get those ready to go. But those are our last platforms, and we're quickly wrapping up construction. So I'm a little bit of a transit junkie, right? And so little things like this kind of get me excited. So this is the parking ride at Northwest Expressway and Meridian. Why am I showing you this station again? Well, that's because we have lighting out there, right? So this is to show the lighting coming online at all of our platforms. So again, this is at the park and ride location at Northwest Expressway and Meridian. You can see how well lit it is for that area. This is a little bit further back. You can see it lights up the roadway. So again, part of this project was to add additional lighting for not only the stops, but also to light up the area around the stops to add that added security and better lighting for our bus operators. Then this is over on Northwest Expressway in Portland, right off of, on the north side of Northwest Expressway, just west of Portland. Again, just showing lighting, and clearly you don't take a picture while you're driving down the road because it ends up fuzzy. But this is at Northwest Expressway in Portland, southbound Portland, and this is also to show the lighting in that area.
Jesse, before you move on, can you go back to that?
You betcha.
To make you feel a little bit better, I don't know if you all have noticed, but this is how Gen Z takes photos now.
Yeah.
You see like the kind of blur kind of thing, so that just makes you hip.
Oh, yeah.
Boomers do.
I'll take it. That's fine. Yeah. Listen, eyes are on the road. That's what's important, right? So it's like, yeah. All right. So as we're starting to wrap up construction, we're moving into the punch list time frame. So part of that punch list is getting all the teams together and basically making a convoy going down the roadway, taking a look at all our stops, everything that's been constructed. So part of that team is, of course, Embark. We had Kristen Torkelson, Eugene Fritz, and Molly Rainey. They were out there doing the punch list work for Embark and checking for safety items. Then we had the Public Works team out there, our project manager, and then our inspectors. Our engineer, HNTB, was out there, and then, of course, our Rudy construction reps were out there all doing this punch list work. Also, part of that is, of course, you know, we got to make sure that everything meets spec, and so Keith Wilkinson, who's been with the city forever, he does all of our ADA stuff. What's cool about Keith is he can literally, as he's walking up to a platform, he goes, "That's not ADA," and then sure enough, he puts his level on it, and it's like 0.2% out. He's been doing it so long, he can just look at it and tell. But he was out there making sure that all of our slopes meet the ADA requirements. And then also, Molly and Eugene were out there doing our certifiable elements list, right? Our CELs, that's part of our FTA requirement, making sure that everything is built per spec and per drawing. And one of those is even making sure that the bike racks are installed per the drawings and making sure that they can actually fit a bike. So that's what they're doing here, checking those items. So you may have noticed some work going on downtown. That's part of this project too. We're installing additional striping and making sure that, you know, everything is working as needed. So one of the things, as we're going along also, we're also doing safety reviews, right? So you've heard Eugene talk about that. So one of the things that we identified was at this intersection, the bus is going westbound on Main and turns north onto Robinson. And so part of our stuff was testing that to make sure that that bus can actually make that corner, right? So you can put everything on paper that you think is going to work. You can run all kinds of studies, but until you actually drive a bus and make that turn, that's how you really know, right? So we've been doing that testing. What we identified was this lane was too wide, right? So for the bus to be able to make that turn, it had to swing way south, and then it opened up enough area to the right of that bus that people may have felt that they could pull up beside the bus, and then you have potential impact, right? So what we did here was we improved the striping, basically pushed all of the traffic to the south a little bit, to be able to make this turn. And so this is, did I get on top of a parking garage to take this picture? Yes, I did, but I wanted to make sure that we were able to portray what was going on there. You'll notice that to the left there, the continental striping is not there. So there's been some other projects in the area that removed that when they put the paving back. The continental striping wasn't able to go in, but part of our project, we're gonna put in all the continental striping there for the pedestrian crosswalks. And you'll see that going on here in the next couple weeks. Again, also part of that safety review was at Hudson and Northwest 10th, right? So the buses go north here, turn west to go outbound, and then coming back, they're coming from the east and turning south. Well, when we did our test, we realized that we couldn't make that corner without going on into oncoming traffic. Well, that's not safe, right? So we worked with Public Works and the Traffic Department, and we essentially removed that left turn lane and gored that out, which gave room for the bus to be able to make that right-hand turn without going into oncoming traffic. Now that right lane, that is a through lane, a right turn, and a left turn. So no impediment to traffic, but improved safety for the bus system. All right, so big news, right? So in the coming weeks, you're gonna start seeing some of this going on along Classen and along Northwest Expressway. This is my stale attempt at trying to use paint to show what it's going to look like, right? So there's going to start this work potentially today or early next week. The far right lane is going to become a bus lane along Classen and along Northwest Expressway. So we'll be painting bus on those lanes, and we're also going to be installing signage along those lanes also. So you'll see that coming online here in the next week or so. All right, wrapping up construction, lots of green on here. Essentially the last things that are left are installing the lights. And so part of that is OG&E. They'll come out, they'll set the meter, and part of that work is also setting those lights. So we're about 16, 17 stations have all the lighting installed. And again, we have 32 total, so in the next couple weeks, we should see all the lighting going up. So that's BRT construction. Now, as we're starting to roll into the last few months of construction, starting to ramp up for operations, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. So this is percentage-wise where we're at. So the majority of the BRT project is the station stops, right? So we're about 91% complete there. The local match-funded bike and pedestrian improvements, we're about 87% complete there. Again, that's those pedestrian crosswalks, striping, things like that. Big news here, our water line betterments. That's complete. So animation, trying out new things. It's cool. And then our total project here, we're about 91% complete for our total project. So we're quickly wrapping up. You can see last month we were here, 71%. We've completed 20% of that project in the last month. So lots and lots of work going on. All right. now let's talk about operations, right? So again, the last couple of months is when operations really starts to ramp up. We talked about those certifiable elements tests. That's going to go on for the next 3 weeks. Our BRT operator training, that's going to go on for about 3 more weeks. And then our increased outreach, I'll talk a little bit about it here, but you're going to hear a lot about it during the marketing committee. IT systems testing, right? So those pylons, making sure all those systems are working. That's going to happen here quickly. Our systems integration testing. So this one's pretty exciting and kind of weird. So what that means is there's a lot of different components that are built as part of bringing the system online. Well, you got to make sure that those components work together, right? So the construction project is installing transit signal prioritization. Well, you have components on the bus that have to communicate with that, and the systems integration testing does that, right? So we'll be taking a bus out there, making sure that the components on the bus communicate with the components in the traffic signals, and making sure that everything works. So that's what the SIT, or systems integration testing, is. And then pre-revenue service starts around the first week in November. And so what that is our bus operators are going out in the buses, starting service just like they would whenever we start revenue service, and they run all day just like they would when we're in revenue service. And what that does is that allows folks to get used to the service. Our operators and customers and citizens of Oklahoma City get used to seeing those buses running around. We're not picking up folks, but we're out running the buses same as we would while we're in revenue service. But that also allows us an opportunity to identify any risk or hazards, and we can get those mitigated prior to us actually going into service the first week of December. And then the ribbon cutting, December 4th. All right, a couple of pictures. So this is Eugene out there doing one of those certifiable elements tests, right? Making sure that the lanes are installed as per the drawings, making sure that they're the correct width. Why do we do that? Well, if the bus lane is 9 foot wide and the bus is hanging over the lines, that's not safe, and we want our contractors to go back and install that per the drawings or per the specs, right? So we're testing everything. And then we'll talk about a little bit about our training, right? So this is Byron getting his trainers ready. We started training on September 25th. You're going to see a lot of buses running around, a lot of safety yellow vest on. That's our operators out there doing that training. And here's a list of all the training that they're going to do over the next 3 weeks. I won't go over every single one of them because that would take a while, but this is about 3 weeks worth of training that they're going to do prior to going into that pre-revenue service. And then I was out and about yesterday. I was able to catch a cool picture of some of those operators out in training, 2 of our buses at the transit center, again, performing that testing and training, but was able to get a cool picture of the group together. And then part of that increased outreach, right? So that's part of getting out in front of the media, letting them know about the Rapid Northwest and what's going on. Jason was able to do a cool interview with OETA. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that. It is on our social media if you'd like to go take a look at it. But again, not only Cody going out and meeting with our folks along the alignment, but also getting on the news organizations and media outreach like that, just to kind of get the information out there. And then it is my honor to reintroduce our Embark characters, right? So up at the top, that's our OKC streetcar characters. You may remember them back in 2017, 2018. Well, guess what? Just like me, they got a little older, right? So we're bringing them back for our BRT launch. And so they look a little different, got a little older, a little cooler. But this is reintroduced you to the team. Edgar Hadley Barnaby, no relationship to Carly Barnaby, our Chief Operations Officer, and then Milton and Kendrick. All right, one last thing. So, reminder that we also provide operations in Norman, right? So the city of Norman, we contract with them to provide operations. They have a brand new transit center that the city of Norman bought and remodeled, and we have a ribbon cutting on October 12th at 2:30. All of you guys are welcome to come down, take a look at it. If you'd like to participate, that'd be awesome. But we also have the Go Norman route enhancements, right? So they're kind of doing similar to like we are with the OKC moves. They took a look at their system and did many enhancements to their routes. Those go live on October 16th, but the big news here is our ribbon cutting on October 12th at 2:30. All right, that's it. Be happy to take any questions.
Did I understand that right lane conversation correctly?
I hope so.
How much of Classen and Expressway is the far right lane
It's a fantastic question.
Well, just,
Yeah.
you know, I've learned a lot from y'all.
Yeah, so the the important thing here is that we are going to be able to use this when we report to the FTA, and we'll actually be able to get some additional funding for maintenance of the BRT system because we have this dedicated right-of-way. And so to meet that requirement, we have to have at least 51% of our route be in that dedicated right-of-way. And so that equates to about 4.8 miles, and we're at 4.88 miles because we go from 16th Street on Classen. So essentially the bike lanes start, that part of the BRT project start at Northwest 10th and Classen. They go up to Northwest 16th and Classen, and then they verge off on to Western. And so from that point at at Classen and Northwest 16th, the bus lane starts and goes all the way up Classen to Northwest Expressway, turns west on Northwest Expressway and runs all the way to Independence, where the bus turns south on Independence, right? So essentially from Northwest 16th and Classen all the way to Northwest Expressway and Independence. 4.88 miles.
Jesse, the sign said from 4 to 7. Is that the outbound and is the
Yeah, let me-
is inbound in the mornings?
Let's get back to it. I like visuals. Yeah, so the idea here being is that we're trying to be able to get through traffic, right? So for the northbound and the westbound, northbound Classen and westbound Expressway, we're thinking folks leaving downtown going back home. And so that heavy traffic period would be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So that's when, you know, we want that lane to be able to mitigate that traffic. For the inbound, or so the eastbound Northwest Expressway or southbound Classen, it's, I believe, from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., right, for that, or 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. for that heavy traffic coming to downtown. Does that make sense? Yep.
So, if I'm hearing that right, if I am a person in my vehicle and I am heading eastbound on Northwest Expressway from what time in the morning?
6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
From 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., the only time I would be able to use the far right lane is if I'm turning off of Northwest Expressway onto any of the various south-north streets.
That's perfect, yep.
Okay, and then there will be signage similar to your incredible art.
Yeah. Microsoft Paint, yeah.
Incredible art. It's like
thank you, yeah.
Michelangelo.
I was working on the shading, I couldn't get there, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, impressive. Okay, and so the signage will go up.
Yep,
And just for clarification, you can turn on a side street or into a driveway.
that's right.
So there are lots of businesses along
Yes.
that route that need the comfort of knowing that people can be in that lane to turn in their business.
Good call, Assistant City Manager, good call. And then the Classen heading south will say similar 6
Exact-
a.m.
exact
to
same
8
signage,
a.m.
yep.
And then heading north, we'll see this signage
Mm-hmm.
on Classen. And then heading west on Expressway, it'll be this 4 to 7
Mm-hmm. That's right.
p.m. Are we anticipating any sort of paint in the lane itself?
Oh, that fantastic graphic that you see there represents that
Says
paint.
bus.
Yeah.
Bus.
Yep, bus, yep.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying I have please don't misunderstand this question. Those of you who know me long enough know that you know what I want about Classen. Y'all know.
Yep.
And I'll get it one day. But I've just seen other cities where in addition to the word bus, you know, there's actual solid coloring
Yeah.
in the lane, where it's bus only, bike only, right turn only. Are we just kind of see what happens here if commuters start figuring out that this is the appropriate way to use this before we level up if we need to where I'd like us to be?
If needed. We don't anticipate that it'll be needed. All of our traffic studies have shown that nobody uses the right lane. I shouldn't say nobody. The percentage of folks that use the right lane is way, way low, so we don't anticipate many issues at all.
Okay. Just all cards on the table, everybody, just so we're all very clear. I have never believed we need 3 lanes on Classen for vehicles. And I know that is not sometimes the opinion of other people, but I just don't see the traffic counts dictate that. I have been to other cities, including our nation's capital city, where they move so much traffic on 4 lanes of traffic on major corridors. So that's my vision. I just want to see a slowed down Classen Boulevard, so it's a boulevard again. Many of the residents, those of you who are going, oh my God, I can't imagine that, I would ask you to go knock doors in Military and Putnam the way I have 2 times now. And the majority of the residents, not all of them, but the majority of residents feel that Classen has become an unfriendly corridor for pedestrians who are trying to walk, for instance, from Military Park neighborhood to Military Park, right? Or the people in Helm Farm being able to walk across the street to Flower Garden Park. It is nearly an impossible task of 6 wide traffic lanes. And it's not just my vision, it's what people are asking for. Now I say that vision to say what I anticipate's coming is some confusion, because there is 70 years now of this city having designed this street, to say nothing of the way the state did with Expressway, where it's a car-centric thing, and I just suspect it's gonna take a lot of visual cues for our residents to understand how this lane is gonna work.
Sure.
So I hear what you're saying about best practices, and I respect that. I also just have a feeling that just be prepared is what I would say.
Fair enough, yep.
You advocate for more paint on the street, saying more than the word bus.
I do. I just anticipate that, having not just traveled to other cities as a COPPA trustee during conferences where I go out on these bus tours or touring the cities, and I've seen this, New York City being one of the more recent ones I did in October 2019, where they did exactly this work. So please do not misunderstand my comments as negativity or anything like that. I'm just, we have put these delineators in for bike lanes on Classen, and there are still, Barney, people, Chairman, there are people who I've had Instagram stories of residents share where people in a car are actually still moving into Classen and hitting those, or on Northeast 10th Street, I'm sorry, not 10th, 13th Street, where we've put in bike lanes, that there are still people in vehicles, drunk or not, who don't understand what we're doing, and not just don't understand, let's be very real, aggressively don't want to understand sometimes, right? They don't like the bikes, they don't like the buses, they don't like the streetcars. So I'm just saying there's a cultural thing, a component we need to take into consideration here too. So I just didn't want to dance around any of it. I just wanted this to be as clearly articulated for all of us. So don't kill the messenger.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for?
I am personally excited to see the cartoon graphics come back. I really have always felt that in order for us to really promote the usage of our mass transit, that we need to engage families more.
Yep.
Growing up in San Antonio, we have an excellent mass transit system there, and there was always commercials with puppets and with things that made it fun for kids, and we actually rode the bus a lot as children, and so I definitely think it's worth doing here as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Michael and his team come up with. It's good stuff. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse.
All right, thank you.
We appreciate the update. Moving on to a presentation on the Mobility Management Services Report. Marilyn? Good morning.
I don't have to deal with the technical difficulties like you do. How's everybody doing today? Good to see everyone. Before we get started, I want to make sure you guys understand that the ridership that I'm talking about in my presentation is how we ended last fiscal year as of June 30th. If you'll recall, we all had an extra day of our holiday weekend, and I didn't get to present to you in July. So I wanted to kind of do that year-end recap with you. So first, let's talk about senior services. Let's just say we're growing, okay? We all know that our population is aging, and the baby boomers are getting older. I hear a statistic that 100 Oklahomans turn 65 every day. That is reflected in our ridership numbers. We finished 2023 fiscal year at 124,633 trips. That's 9% over the prior year. When I was preparing for my presentation this morning, I actually looked at our ridership for July and August of the current year. In August, for our senior congregate meal sites, we were 285 trips higher than July. Things are getting a little crazy for us. We're really, really growing. Our outreach is doing wonderful things. Our partners are helping us. I know our other city partners and city departments are helping us spread the word, so we really appreciate all that you do to help us with that. Community development programs going strong. We're renewing our grant this year, and I believe that was on your consent docket. And this is where we're sitting. We're looking in 2024 at the Sheriff Fair program. It's going to be one of our big focuses. If you'll recall, several years ago, the taxi company we used for years on a voucher program restructured and didn't have the capacity to handle that for us anymore. So we went with a different partner. We changed the model up a little bit to make it a trip subsidy program where we pay the first $4 of the fare for the seniors. With the economy the way that it is hitting right now, they don't have the money to pick up the rest of the fare. The average fare is around $20 to $22 for this particular provider to take a 10-mile trip. And even with us paying the $4, that's still too expensive for our low-income seniors. So we're going to be actively working with our partners in 2024, looking at some models of those trip subsidy programs in other cities and seeing what we can do to help our seniors with this. As a reminder, Sheriff Fair is one of the few programs we have for seniors that has expanded service hours and operates on the weekends. It's a really good thing for those low-income seniors. They can utilize our senior transportation during the days, during the weekdays, you know, for their social activities, their grocery shopping, and any medical appointment they have. And then the Sheriff Fair program gives them some flexibility to travel on the weekends. And so we want to make sure that we give that to them in the best possible way. So we'll be looking at that. I will tell you, this is an area where we are going to run short of funding again this year. Our grant from the planning department is $105,000, and then Embark subsidizes that with an additional $90,000 in my budget every year to help us pay for our homeless bus pass and taxi rides for victims of domestic violence. We had $366,000 worth of requests, and obviously I didn't have enough money to do everything. So we do have an extensive waiting list for bus passes for social service agencies. Don't give me that look. It's not like I'm not going to fix this. I see that look on your face. Now, we are actively looking for some additional funding. We've got some grants, small grants that we're going to be applying for, and we have actually talked to a few of our partner agencies that are going to help us with this program. So that's not to say I don't want to hear your idea, though, Trustee Cooper.
You're doing great work. You know how I feel about you and your work. I think this is more as we head into the next fiscal year budget conversation, which of course begins in December for the city. It is baffling to me, baffling. We as the city of OKC would ask a service like this to rely on grant applications rather than prioritizing it in our city general fund budget. We are talking, this might not be the opinion of everybody else, but I have it is baffling to me that hearing the people we're serving, seniors, low-income seniors, some of our most vulnerable people, that we wouldn't prioritize connecting them to their basic needs. So I can just tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this. We already have one assistant city manager up here. I'm just going to bring, and another one just happens to be the director of Embark. But I want to raise this to City Manager Freeman as well. It is truly baffling that we would ask you to rob Peter to pay Paul, the way my mom, that's her metaphor. I don't understand it. I truly don't understand it. It's not tilted right.
Yeah, give me a couple more slides, and I'm going to show you the other solution that we have for this too, so, that's coming along down the pike that we're quite excited about. So, let's talk a little bit about Embarkwell, another area where the seniors are just absolutely adoring this program, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They get to go to the closest senior wellness MAPS 3 center or the YMCA location. We've added parks locations, so if the Oklahoma City Parks Department is having a senior-focused event or a class, then they can use Embarkwell to go to that. Ridership is just monumentally increasing. Yearly total for last year was 2,755 trips. In August of this year, we did 529 in 1 month. So that's how you can see how it just June popped. My team does a great job with their outreach, let me tell you what. So let's talk about Climb Ride for just a minute. Very, very soon, we will be bringing an agreement with the Oklahoma Department of Human Services. They are going to permanently fund the Climb Ride program in Oklahoma County. Not only are they going to permanently fund the program, they would like us to double capacity. So instead of working with 50 families in Oklahoma County, we will now be working with 100 families. It's a 10-year agreement. Climb's not going anywhere. We're so excited. Stephanie was sitting by me back there, and we were talking as we were waiting for the meeting to start. We got a text message this morning. We just had another single father that successfully closed his case in a very short period of time. And after the meeting, we're going to be meeting with him to give his universal pass as his capstone reward for completing it. So we're very, very excited about that. We're also talking with partners and the Arnall Family Foundation on what this is going to look like if we expand it into another area, if we replicate. In other words, what would happen if we worked in workforce and used the same model? What would happen if we went to juvenile justice or youth aging out of foster care and put that Climb service into the social service landscape? So we're going to see what happens here in the next couple of years. Things are getting quite interesting with that program. Let's talk a little bit about Palomar. This is another one that's really, demand is going up a little bit. It's effective, it's long-term, and I learned the other day, and this makes me so sad, Oklahoma leads the nation in domestic violence. We need to do better. We have got to do better. This is a little not timely anymore because, like I said, I missed my July date with you all, but I wanted to share this with you. We had two of our paratransit operators, Jennifer Schmidt and Renee Beechler, attended the CTA Expo in May in the driver skilled rodeo. Jennifer Smith took first place. We're so proud of her. Jennifer's going to be going to Florida to compete in the National Drivers Competition next year, so I just wanted to share that with you because we are so proud of our team. They do such a good job and take such good care of our customers. So what's coming up next? So we talked a little bit about funding shortfalls, the massive increase in demand that we're seeing. You'll recall that we won a grant last year for mobility projects to do software. We're going to be bringing that RFP to the board next month and release that so we can get started on it. We're going to be adding some new mobility projects, looking at the Sheriff Air program, like I said, also expanding Climb Ride Out. But the big thing, too, is the 5310 funding. So what is 5310? So this is a senior and individuals with disabilities funding stream from the Federal Transit Administration. It's formula funding, much like the 5307 money that we get for our fixed route bus service from the federal government. It is quite flexible. It allows both capital and operating expenses, hence my excitement about getting this money because a lot of these programs that are seeing increased ridership and starting to hit our budget limits are going to be able to benefit from this additional increase of funding. So in the current year, the formula funding for the Oklahoma City urbanized area in this program is $1.298 million. The transfer of the funds from ODOT to Embark as the direct recipient has been approved by ACOG. The next step is for the governor to issue a letter informing the Federal Transit Administration that they are changing the direct recipient from ODOT to Embark. And then we will start the process of the FTA reviewing ODOT's records, going through all the motions of auditing them, determining the final balance, and then transferring the funds to us. And we'll keep you updated as this goes along. So what is the urbanized area? It's that big yellow thing. It does not include Norman. That is not to say we will not be planning with Norman very, very interactively to make sure these services are seamless and don't recognize that line on the map. But Norman has their own small pot of the same funding stream as a small urban community. It does not include El Reno, Chickasha, Purcell, or Shawnee, but we all know that those cities have citizens that come here for medical appointments. So we will still be coordinating with the entities in those cities. For example, COTS in Shawnee has an active transportation system, and we want to make sure that our plans going forward with this 5310 money consider mobility in a more regional manner so that our citizens can experience that seamlessly. So a little bigger picture of what 5310 covers. In Oklahoma, there are 3 pots of money for this. There is the rural money, the large urban money for Oklahoma City, the large urban money for Tulsa, and then a small urban pot of money that is for the city of Lawton, Norman, and Enid as a small urban community. The part of the state that Embark will be managing the funding for is what's called the Transportation Management Area. It's slightly bigger than our service area for our traditional BARC services, but it is basically that red circle that you see highlighted there. And so I just wanted to share this with you. Like I said, we're going to be spending a lot more time with this going forward. And then, of course, the last thing I have to share with you is we've hired a full-time 5310 program manager to manage this money and the public meetings that go around it. It's just like any other funding stream for the federal government. We have to have public engagement meetings. We have to develop a program of projects, take those through the appropriate approval process. These will not just be Embark projects. I want to make that really clear. This money is designed to create a coordinated network of mobility services. So we will be working with social service agencies, state agencies that may have transportation needs and funding that we can braid together to make this go further. We'll also be working with all of our nonprofit partners across the city. So I wanted to introduce you to Stephanie Davis. Stephanie is going to be our new 5310 program manager. You might recall Stephanie as being the award-winning mobility program coordinator for the Climb Ride. So we're actually very excited about this and wanted to congratulate and recognize her today. And with that, I will take any questions.
Can you tell us what the costs are associated with operating the block grant money program that goes to the day passes?
So basically, it's the cost, our cost of printing the passes, and just the administrative cost of the staff to run that program.
To distribute.
And then it also funds the subsidy portion of the share fare program. And then we utilize about $15,000 of that money is set aside for emergency taxi rides for domestic violence victims when the Palomar vehicle is not operating, because it obviously only operates 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and there's needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we offset that with those extra funds. And we're also working with our partners in the homeless sector at Victory House over by North Care to look into the possibility of using a small amount of that money to do a monthly shuttle to Walmart for people in transitional housing to be able to do their shopping. So,
But if you increase the amount of money or the number of day passes that you say you run out of money for.
yes, sir, that's where we ran out
The
of
direct
money.
expense doesn't cost us any more other than printing the tickets and distributing
Well, and
them.
obviously, we're not going to get the Fair Rocks recovery from the actual ticket.
The revenue of people that would have to go ahead and buy a day pass.
Yes, sir.
So, okay,
Thank you all.
okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our parking services report. Corey.
Who wants to talk about concrete today? I thought so. Small conversation about concrete. At the Sheridan Walker Garage, we've removed all of the painted walking surfaces and the staircases for improved safety. We still have some cleanup work to do in there, but that project's wrapping up. At the Arts District Garage, in case you go through there, some of the painted ceilings are chipping. You've seen the team go through there and scrape some of the loose stuff off, and we'll be repainting shortly. That's just basic routine maintenance. Springtime, as most of you are aware, our parking operator had some management changes. Positive impacts of that, they're really focused on customer service. They lack a lot of parking experience. That was a deliberate decision to focus on the customer service. Already have seen those improvements with the hiring of the frontline staff that's just has more of a customer service background to interact with our customers. We have transitioned from a very archaic accounts receivable system to a newer version. It's a system that we use to invoice our monthly contract parkers. We can actually email invoices now and accept payments online and reoccurring payments. So that's just a benefit to customers. It's anticipated that we'll get paid a little bit quicker because we're not putting things in the mail and stamping them and having to go through that tedious work. Our enforcement, when I say enforcement, I'm referring to our off-street parking program that we're all familiar with. We've instituted in our surface lots, we use some parking meters that are very similar to what's used on street. We have a enforcement system that allows an individual to go with a handheld, download the transactions of what's supposed to be parked on the lot, and then issue those citations electronically, and we can track that information versus very, very manual practices in the past. Our call center is 24/7, 365. So if you were to push an intercom today at one of the devices or call our public 405-297-2540 number, it all goes to the same home. Individuals call it. With that, we're able to streamline systematic processes to assist those customers, phone calls and intercoms, and then soon we'll be running all of our maintenance stuff through there. So if an individual wanted to report anything and everything maintenance related, they would be directed through that for documentation and quicker response times. That is my brief presentation. Is there any questions?
I was going to ask you about the occupancy dropping from 80% to 70% in August. Is that seasonal, or what was the cause of that?
We had a major customer that's involved in creating movies and television shows and whatnot, and we're seeing that impact of the strikes going on.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see that. Are there any other questions or comments for our parking?
Just a comment related, if the strike ends before the Oscars, then anything we can do to promote the Killers of the Flower Moon would be good for Oklahoma. So just a comment.
Okay. If not, thank you. Corey. Okay, item D is to receive our program reports. So if you all would, I would entertain a motion to receive the reports. It's been moved and seconded. If you'd vote electronically. Motion passes. Okay, items from the trustees. Just starting over to my left, Robert. Steve?
Mr. Chairman, I did just want to express my condolences, and I'm sure all of you do too, for our previous chairman, Chris Kaufman, having lost his spouse during the last month. You know, it's a dedication that everyone gives to being a volunteer on this. Of course, city staff, not so much volunteer, but we appreciate all of you, and certainly Chris's long-term service. I'm sure Judy had some impact on his service. So I just wanted to express our condolences for that.
Thank you. Okay. Suzanne?
Yes, I was going to just mention, as I get my mic on here, I was just going to mention that we have at 11 o'clock a marketing committee meeting on the second floor here in the city clerk's office, their conference room. But I also wanted to mention that this week we are holding our half price sale. And so it is typically for the summer, we do it in July, but with our transit center remodel and just all the construction going on there, we felt it was best for our customers and safety and the heat and such to wait and delay it. The project is still not finished, so we decided we got to do this because we know our customers count on this, our nonprofits count on this. So we held what we called a flash sale every Saturday, beginning September 16th. There was 3 Saturdays. We opened the transit center. We had staff there to sell passes, and we wound up helping 300 customers during those Saturdays. And then this week, we're 4 days in of data that I have here, but we've helped about 1,500 customers, sold almost 5,900 passes just through those 4 days at the transit center. So we know it's a really important time for our customers. We do plan on still having one in December on the usual kind of timeline. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
Great.
Quick question related. The marketing meeting, will it be immediately following, or will we wait till 11 a.m.?
We'll wait till 11, just
Okay.
as the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
Or committee meeting. But there is a great coffee shop over there, over on Main Street, Clarity Coffee. One of our tenants.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending today's meeting, and we don't have anything else, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.